Friends, welcome to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It's not difficult for you, but it's nice for me, and we're starting. When I came to the office on Monday, Dan said, "Do you want to relax for a couple of days in Florida?" Elliot Rogers seems to need a little bit of support, given all the turmoil in the Dow over the last couple of months. Since Dan and I were co-owners of our company, we usually no longer wanted clients. We needed young, impatient subordinates for this. But Elliot Rogers and his wife have worked for us for more than 15 years and invested almost $100 million, so they were given special attention. I don't mind, in fact, it's a very good time. The kids went off to college, and Carrie went to stay with a friend in Nashville for a week. So, of course, I'm going to calm him down. The plus for me was the opportunity to see my Uncle Tony. Now he is almost 80. He lived right on a picturesque river an hour north of Miami and was as interesting a person as ever. I went home, packed a bag for a couple of days, went to the airport, and by 3:30 I was sitting with Tony on the balcony of his apartment, drinking Sam Adams and listening to the same old stories that I had enjoyed since childhood. Every time a boat passed by, he would stop talking and pick up the binoculars. "Are you going to finish this story, or what, Tony? The guy in the bar attacked you?" He grinned without taking the binoculars off his eyes. "Hold on, my young friend." He handed me the binoculars, and to my amazement, I saw 3 teenage girls and a guy waving from a small sailboat. All the girls were grinning and topless. Tony took the binoculars back. "Do you see what I mean?" He chuckled with satisfaction. We shared family stories and drank a few more beers until I started thinking about dinner, maybe a couple of steaks at the place Tony liked, around the corner. He picked up the binoculars again, looked at the pale blue boat, focused carefully, and just stared. Then he said, "Yeah," and handed the binoculars to me. You may wonder why I noticed the name of the boat, or the tattoo on a naked woman. It is quite simple to explain this. It was my wife, Carrie. Without saying a word, I handed the binoculars back to my uncle and listened to his comments until the couple disappeared around the bend. When they were gone, he lowered the binoculars and said, "What a sight it was. I see couples doing it from time to time, Jack, but I'll tell you, that lady was hot. If I were 20 years younger, more like 50, I'd say." I smiled at him. I was very upset, but I wasn't going to talk about it with Tony. We went to get our steaks, after which I brought Tony home, and he went to bed. I was in my hotel room by 9:30, and I had a lot to think about. You might think that I would have been destroyed, but that wasn't the case. Carrie and I have been married for about 12 years. She was a great stepmother to my 2 children. My first wife died in a train accident. A very good wife to me. I loved and appreciated her, and I knew that she loved me. And yet, somehow it didn't shock me that she was cheating on me. Carrie has always been a restless person. She never liked doing one thing for a long time. During our marriage, she had 5 different jobs. She had a variety of hobbies, from knitting to country dancing and horseback riding, and she just never wanted to sit still. Sometimes we made gentle, even ordinary love between older people in marriage, but sometimes she used me to hell. Even exhibitionism, to some extent, fits. Carrie tried several times to get me to use her in public. We tried it on a park bench, a couple of times in the back seat of my car, but I gave up on it all. I didn't want my name printed in the newspapers. To put it bluntly, I wasn't crushed. I was angry, I was hurt, but I didn't see my marriage necessarily break up because of this. I didn't think Carrie wanted to humiliate me. She didn't know where Uncle Tony lived, and she certainly didn't suspect that I would be looking at the river that day. But 2 things were quite clear to me. I was going to find out a lot more about what was going on, and I was going to use Stephanie prints. For that, I called Marjorie Bales in Nashville, where Carrie was supposed to spend a week. She seemed surprised by my call and a little wary. "I'm sorry to bother you, Marjorie, but Carrie's cell phone doesn't seem to be working, and I can't get through. Could you call her for a minute?" "Oh, I'm sorry, Jack. She's in the shower. Can I ask her to call you back?" We talked on the phone, and I smiled to myself. As I expected, Marjorie was covering for her old friend. I was wondering how many of Carrie's previous trips to Nashville were actually vacations with one friend or another. Carrie called me on my cell phone. About 45 minutes later, quite a long shower, and we had a friendly chat. I told her I was on my way to meet a client, but I didn't mention where I was. Before we hung up, she said she loved me, missed me, and would see me on Saturday. The thing is, I believed her. She really loved me. I didn't think that the affair was intended to get out of our marriage or outmaneuver me. I assumed that my troubled wife was just not well suited for a monogamous life. After meeting with Elliot Rogers the next morning, I spent half an hour with Thomas Giordino, a private investigator. I told him all about the short-haired guy from my Blue Angel, gave him a copy of my wife's photo, and left him a solid check. There's no need to break in on them, I told him, and I don't need compromising photos. Just carefully find out what's the matter. Did she stay with him? Or was it a chance meeting? Who is this guy? Where is he from? And what does he do for a living? I want to try to find out how they met and how long they've been doing this. Before I boarded the plane back to Charlotte, I called Stephanie Prince. Hi, this is the man of your dreams. Are you free for dinner tonight? Yes, I'm serious. Carrie's out of town, and I want to take you out to dinner. How do you like Fig Tree? Fantasy. I'll pick you up at 8 o'clock. And listen, put on something that is worthy of this beautiful body. I want every man in the restaurant to hate my guts tonight. I laughed and hung up. Then he called the Fig Tree and booked a table. Stephanie Prince was a tall, very hot red-haired woman in her 32s who lived 3 blocks away from Carrie and me. She sold real estate, knew almost everyone in the city, dated a lot, and for some unknown reason, was not indifferent to me, even though I was a pretty average guy of 41. 3 or 4 years earlier, after we had met at several neighborhood parties, she made me a serious offer. We were having lunch downtown, and she said, "Jack, would you do me a favor?" "Of course," I replied. "Tell me the name." "Lately, I've been going through a hell of a hard time. Could you take a couple of hours off today and blow my brains out?" When I finished lifting my jaw off the table, we talked about it. If I had considered cheating on my wife with anyone, it would have been Stephanie, and I told her about it, but I took my marriage vows seriously. I know you're happily married, Jack, and I'm not trying to separate you from Carrie. I'm not looking for a husband or even a magical romance. I love, and I like you. If you want to lie on the bed with me, once or several times, just say the word. I let her go, but I didn't thank her for the flattering offer. The steelhead trout in the Fig Tree was the best I've ever tasted, but it paled in comparison to my night in Stephanie Prince's bed. And at least part of the time, Carrie didn't get out of my head. Although when Stephanie rode me like a galloping bronco and pulled my arms, I couldn't help but think about what I'd seen the day before on the Blue Angel. The dinner was surprisingly serious. We flirted, of course, and Stephanie kept hinting at her plans for me after dessert, but we also really talked. She's so attractive that it's easy to overlook how thoughtful and intelligent Stephanie is, but our conversation reminded me of that. It wasn't long before she asked the $64,000 question right after we placed the order. "Okay, Jack, spit it out. I'm glad you called, but what's going on?" I smiled. "Can't I have an elegant dinner with the most beautiful woman I know?" "What about Carrie?" "Yes, she's attractive too, but," I said. Stephanie slapped my hand, smiling. "Very funny. Really, what's the matter? You've been keeping your distance since I showed interest a couple of years ago, so why today?" I told her what I had seen in Florida and how I felt about it. "It sucks," she said. "I'm sorry, Jack." And I knew she was serious. We spent most of the dinner talking about marriage, cheating, and trust. Stephanie got divorced twice, both times with hot guys who cheated on her, after which she practically abandoned the marriage, so she was very sympathetic. Over a cup of coffee, she asked, "So what are you going to do?" I smiled. "In the short term, I'm going to take you home and hope you invite me in." She gave me a half smile and gently touched her foot to my foot under the table. After that, I do not know. I think Carrie and I can get through this maybe. I need to know how serious this affair of hers is, and I have a boyfriend who is studying it. But you know what? I think it's time to stop talking about Carrie. I signaled for the check. 5 minutes later, we walked hand in hand to the car. 20 minutes after that, we were already lounging on her couch, and a little later, we were naked in Stephanie's bedroom. Over the next few days, the smile on my face from the amazing night with Stephanie came and went, alternating with dark thoughts about Carrie and the future of our marriage. People at work must have noticed something, because on Thursday, Dan came into my office, closing the door behind him, and asked, "What?" Sighing, I told him the story. What are you going to do? He asked. Ask me next week, I said. It depends on what the private investigator finds and what Carrie says. She'll be back Saturday night, so we'll see. I spent Thursday night with Stephanie, and it was just as hot as the first time. I brought Chinese takeout and we fed each other in bed. You know what? I told her around midnight, when we were sleepily watching Letterman. I'm really having a good time. And this is a surprise for you? You idiot. She laughed. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I kissed her. Love with you is just fabulous, Stephanie. I'm serious. You're an amazing lover. But you turned me on so much that it took me a while to notice how much fun I had when we weren't making love. You're just. I can't believe no one has bought you yet. You deserve better than that. Well, than me, to be honest. She turned off the TV and pulled me to her for a kiss. You're sweet, Jack. And I had a great time too. But don't belittle yourself. You're a bigger prize than you think. And if Carrie doesn't get her head out of her ass, then women will line up to try to make you feel better. Including you? I asked. She looked away. I don't know. I've almost come to terms with the fact that I'm not a settled girl, but let's just say I don't know and leave it at that. We left everything as it was, both realizing that everything had become very serious. Clinging to each other, we kissed a little more and fell asleep. And in the morning, Stephanie was light and funny. We took a shower together, joked at breakfast, and went our separate ways. Thomas Giardino, a private investigator from Florida, sent me an email on Friday afternoon. Here are our preliminary results. Please read and study the attached files, and then call my office. I'll be there until 6 p.m. I read the report, looked at half a dozen photos, then called and talked to Giardino for about 20 minutes. The owner of the Blue Angel was a 34-year-old guy named Roger Dion. He was the vice president of sales for a drug supply company and, according to his neighbors, something of a pussy lover. He almost always had a woman at home. She splashed in the pool, sunbathed on the deck, or even moaned and screamed in his bedroom. And women never stayed long. Dion obviously loved diversity, not monogamy. The private investigator's photos included several shots of Carrie and Dion together lying by the pool, getting out of a BMW in his driveway, and one of them eating together at a table in the back of the house. There was no love on any of them, although it was obvious that she lived with him. Several people from Dion's entourage recognized Carrie from the photo I provided, but no one could remember if they had seen her before this week. So, what could I conclude? First, Dion was most likely Carrie's short-term boyfriend, or at least a recent acquisition. They probably met through work, since Carrie worked in the purchasing department of a hospital in Charlotte and constantly dealt with drug supply companies and their managers. Whether she planned to date him after this week was impossible to say, but he didn't look like a second husband. Since Carrie has been visiting her friend Marjorie about once a year in the last few years, it's likely that old Roger was just my wife's last fling, and not the one and only. She was obviously very careful in her adventures, as I would have had no idea what she was doing if it hadn't been for an accident and Uncle Tony's binoculars. I have a few questions left, but not so many. There's only one main thing. What should I do about it? Baby, I missed you. Carrie kissed me casually and hugged me tightly. I kissed her back, then took her suitcase, and we went to the airport parking lot, while she squeezed my hand tightly. I hope you have a bottle of champagne for us. Since both Carrie and I periodically traveled for work, or in her case, to visit my friend Marjorie in Nashville, we got into the habit of celebrating our reunions with champagne in bed, followed by love. Tonight was no exception. She took a quick shower while I unloaded her bags and got out the champagne, and we spent the next couple of hours playing in bed. She looked happy and excited, as always, but for me it was different. Fun, physically satisfying, but a little empty. When we finished, she snuggled up to me, kissed me on the neck, said, "Thank you, baby, I love you," and fell asleep a few minutes later. When Carrie came into the kitchen on Sunday morning in her bathrobe and with a sleepy smile, I had already made coffee and was just serving scrambled eggs and toast. She hugged me, smiling, then accepted a cup of coffee. We ate in silence. Carrie looked at me affectionately, squeezing my hand from time to time, and I just sat and watched. After the second cup, when she began to recover, Carrie said, "That was pretty sweet last night, baby." The best part of being away is always coming back when you remind me of what I've been missing. She smiled at me, lovingly. I liked it, but it didn't stop me from saying what I've been waiting for so long. Do you think we're safe, Carrie? The smile froze on her face. Jack, what? What did you say? I waited, letting the silence grow. Her face turned very pale, and she couldn't hold my gaze. Roger, I said. A guy in Florida, with a boat. Don't play dumb. Honey, it doesn't suit you. And what about the other guys you've made love to? I think there were at least 5 or 6 of them. Have you been a good girl and practiced safe love? Carrie started crying. Jack, I am. It's not, what? Oh my God. Baby, I'm so sorry. I'm not. Oh my God. She buried her face in her hands, crying even harder. When she looked up at me, her face was stained with tears. I just stared back. Baby, I am. Jack, I know that oh my God. I know I did something terrible, but how did you know? Silence. I wasn't going to answer that question. She looked at me and recoiled from everything she saw. Now she was crying harder, blowing her nose into a napkin. I got up from the table. I'm going to take a shower. When I returned to the kitchen half an hour later, shaved and dressed, Carrie was still sitting at the table, but she had already cleared away the dishes and washed her face. Honey, I know I owe you an explanation. I know I screwed up, and I love you so much. I just can't. I'm sorry, Carrie, I said. Not now. I have to be at Stephanie Prince's house. I think I'll be back for dinner, then we can talk. Stephanie Prince? Her sad face turned puzzled. Yes. Do you remember Stephanie, the real estate agent? Tall, with red hair? Carrie looked like pigs had just flown in through the kitchen window. Stephanie, are you making love to her? Well, when I found out that our marriage wasn't what I thought it was, I accepted her offer. We made love, yes. So, see you at dinner. That day, in Stephanie's bed, I left what I thought was a pretty good opinion of myself, considering what I had been doing with Carrie the night before. Then we lay down for a while, ate sandwiches and watched the Carolina Panthers. Around 6, I got up to take a shower, enjoying the sounds from the bedroom, where Stephanie was yelling at the judges to throw the damn flag at least once in a while. Huh? When I came out, she said, do you want to stay for dinner? We could order Chinese food again, or pizza or something. I smiled. I'm sorry, but I can't do it today. I told Carrie I'd be home for dinner. Stephanie sat up straight, giving me a wonderful view of her beautiful breasts. What the hell is that? You mean she's back and you're here? Does she know? Yes, she came home last night. I told her everything this morning about her boyfriend. And she knows exactly where I am, although I don't think she likes it very much. A slow smile appeared on Stephanie's face. You're a tough son of a bitch, aren't you? She got out of bed, pulled on her nightgown, and came over to hug me. So what does it mean? She muttered. About us? I looked at her. To be honest, I do not know. There aren't many alternatives, and after tonight, I'll know a lot more. I can get divorced, and then you'll be #1 on my to-do list. I smiled at her. Or I suppose Carrie and I could arrange an open marriage, given what she's doing. In this case, see above. Or maybe we'll just sort it out and go back to where I thought we were all this time. Stephanie patted my shoulders, looking at me thoughtfully. I really like you, Jack. Both in and out of bed, actually. But I don't think I should be somewhere in the middle of your marriage. That's not what I meant when we started playing. I kissed her. I understand. We need to deal with Carrie first. After that, we'll see. But I definitely wouldn't give up more than what we've been doing, Steph. Catching her off guard, I grabbed her ass and lifted her in my arms. Squealing, she wrapped her legs around my waist and hugged me, giggling as I kissed her hard again. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. When I entered the house, soft music was playing Vivaldi or something like that. I looked into the dining room and saw a table set for 2, with serving mats, beautiful napkins, and 2 tall candles. Before I could go to look for Carrie, she came in from the kitchen with fried chicken in a large frying pan. She wore one of her beautiful dresses, much more chic than usual for a quiet dinner at home on the weekend. There you are, she said in a voice full of mock amusement. Dinner is ready, so sit down. A moment later, she returned from the kitchen with 2 more dishes, rice pilaf and spinach. When I sat down, She took out a bottle of good white wine from the refrigerator, which we both love, and poured us each a glass. "It looks amazing, Carrie," I said. We drank a glass of wine in silence and ate our dinner, without much conversation. There was some talk about innocent things, the latest news from the kids, what happened at my job, but there was too much left unsaid, too many topics that needed to be avoided. It was stressful, and she obviously enjoyed it a lot less than I did. When she cleared the table and brought me a beautiful apple pie, I suddenly had enough. All day indeed. All week I had thoughts spinning in my head. Is it possible to save my marriage? Do I want to save him? Would it be as good for me if I became a single guy again? Is there a possible future with Stephanie? And I realized that at least at that moment everything depended on what Carrie would say. It depends on what her story will be and how she tells it. So, Carrie, shall we get down to business? What comes first? Shall we talk about my day with Stephanie or your week with Roger Dion? Which of us made love more? How many other lovers or friends, or whatever you call them, have spread your legs? Will we have an open marriage or no marriage at all? Where would you like to start? I caught her off guard. She was staring at me, her face pale, her mouth open. Then she began to cry softly. "Jack, I'm a terrible person." She spoke softly, tears streaming down her face onto the table. "I'm selfish, I'm immature, I'm a liar and a liar." She looked up at me. "You know that before you. I've never had a relationship that lasted even a year. I've always been, I don't know, restless or moody or claustrophobic, always unhappy with what I had. And we met when we fell in love, and you proposed to me. I was so happy, so glad. I felt that at last. Now I found the right guy, and I'm going to love him to death, forever. No more worrying. No more worrying about what else or who else is in the world. There is only one person who has made me so happy." Now I was the only one who was surprised. No evasions, no attempts to downplay what she had done, even though I didn't know all that yet. It wasn't what I expected. And I was, she continued, happy, I mean, with you, with us, even with the fact that I became a stepmother to the children. She looked at me. I can't tell you how happy I feel when I think about it. But that didn't stop me from continuing to be a selfish, spoiled, cheating fool. And I know I ruined everything, and I don't even know what. At that moment, she was completely speechless, sobbing convulsively, covering her face with her hands. I waited for her to cry. Part of me wanted to comfort her, hug her, but most of me wanted her to feel what she was feeling. Loneliness, guilt, fear. She made me feel bad, and I wanted her to feel bad. It's probably not very noble, but who can blame me? After a few minutes, she began to calm down, catch her breath. "Why don't you go wash up, and we can sit on deck and talk," I said. When we sat down, I asked, "Can you imagine what will happen next?" She shook her head, looking worried, and I said, "Actually, me too. But we'll start by telling me about it. Not the disgusting details, but who, how much, where and when. And damn it, Carrie, if you lie to me even once, even for some little reason, I'll kick your fucking ass out of this house." "All right," she said thinly. "No lies. There were 3 of them. A one-night stand, 5 years ago, when she was visiting Margie and they went dancing at a club in Nashville. They both picked up guys and took them to Margie's for the night. And then 3 years of nothing." Carrie was shocked at herself, scared of what she had done. But the fright was short-lived. She did it again. She was picked up at a bar when she was visiting Margie, and she spent the night in the guy's hotel room. He was a married businessman from Los Angeles. After that, according to Carrie, she wasn't so scared anymore. She felt bad. She swore to herself that she would never do it again. But she wasn't so scared anymore. The third guy was Roger Dion. Everything was as I imagined. He met her on business in Charlotte, they flirted, and instead of telling him to fuck off, she let him keep working on her. A few months later, after a few private dinners and a few stolen kisses, she agreed. But she told him that she absolutely would never meet him in Charlotte. In the end, he came up with the idea for her to visit him in Florida. On her last visit to Margie, she flew to Nashville on Saturday, then boarded a plane to Miami and spent 4 days with Roger, after which she returned to Nashville before the end of the week. She didn't want to risk flying home straight from Miami, and somehow I'd find out about it. She swore she had no intention of seeing him again, and I believed her. Not a single part of this story suggested anything romantic. And love, at least as Carrie told the story, sounded pretty ordinary. Exciting, like a new novel, but nothing cosmic. When she finished telling me her story, she leaned back in her chair, looking exhausted. To my surprise, I found that I already had a clear idea of what I wanted. All right, I said. Now it's your turn to listen. When I point at you, you'll say yes, Jack. Otherwise, shut your damn mouth. Okay, Carrie? I pointed at her. She nodded, looking scared, then belatedly said, yes, Jack. I love you and I appreciate our marriage and I fucking hate what you've done. Part of me wants to grab you by the neck and slowly strangle you, watching your face as you die. You shat on me and on our marriage. You betrayed our love, my faith in you, and all the hard work we both did to make our marriage a success. You should be damn ashamed of yourself, you know that, right? I pointed at her, and she answered quickly, yes, Jack, nodding so vigorously that I almost broke into a smile. There are only 3 things that can happen, and I've already ruled out one of them, I said. I got up and started pacing back and forth, watching her face. The first one, we can get a divorce. Nice, simple and clean. We'll just say hasta la vista, and you can move out of this house and spread your legs in front of any asshole that catches your eye. You can be free, be as restless, selfish, and irresponsible as you want. No need to lie. No need to trample on anyone's heart. The second one, we can decide that we will have an open marriage. There's no point in living up to our marriage vows. They're so outdated and depressing, right? You use whoever you like. I use whoever I like, Stephanie Prince or whoever, and if we want, we can, from time to time, even use each other. That's just this option. It doesn't suit me. There will be no real love, trust, or connection in it. This is not a marriage that can make me happy, so I won't do it. Point. That leaves the third one. We're staying married. We decide that the words we said to each other 12 years ago, the words that we would leave everyone else, still mean something to us even after you pissed on them all, and after I spent a few nights in Stephanie's bed. I choose the third one. She looked scared, but she said it right away. Didn't I say not to talk? Yes, Jack, I did. I can't help it. I choose the third one. That is, if I have a choice. You haven't said yet if you'll give me the right to vote. But my vote is for the third one. All right, I said. I was pleased, but I didn't show it. Now shut up again. The only one who has the right to vote is me, okay? Say, yes, Jack. Yes, Jack. There was a tiny glimmer of a smile on her face, and I thought maybe mine was too. Number 3 means that a lot needs to be fixed, a lot needs to be done. You're getting tested to find out what sexually transmitted diseases this asshole has given you. And I think I need to get tested too. You will start going to a therapist, and we will start going to a marriage counselor. Honestly, I think the first one is important. I don't see that it's our fucking problem, it's your fucking problem. But I'm sure the consultant will help us communicate better. Even if it's just so I know when I'm going to have to kick your ass before you do something else, even 1/8 more stupid. Next, press your legs together. Do you understand? I pointed at her, and she replied, yes, Jack. There were tears on her face, but she started to smile. You remind yourself that there's only one guy you're flirting with, one guy you're kissing or touching, one guy you're using. Always. And that's me. And if you don't like it, if you think it's too restrictive, then we're back to number 1. I looked at her, and the smile disappeared. Yes, Jack. Yes, I understood. Yes, absolutely. All right, I said, still pacing. After thinking about it, perhaps there will be some more as we move forward, something that I will think about later, or something that a marriage counselor can suggest. But so far there are 2 more. First of all, Nashville is over. You will never go there again. Carrie's head jerked. She opened her mouth, but then closed it again. Then she nodded and said, yes, Jack. Your little friend Margie was at the very center of how you ruined our marriage, and it's going to stop. If you want to see her, you can invite her here. Do you understand? Yes, Jack. She said it before I even looked at her. And I'm sorry. You're absolutely right about Margie and about all this. Now the last one. I keep seeing Stephanie. Not all the time, but from time to time. Whenever I feel like it. Have dinner. Have sex. Whatever. Until I decide I've had enough or you've had enough. Say it. I pointed at her. Yes, Jack. Her face was pale, and tears returned to her eyes. It's not very pleasant, is it? Thinking about me with her? That gorgeous body, those long legs wrapped around me, are we making love or just kissing? Maybe we just lie there and whisper sweet words to each other? No, Jack, it's not very pleasant. It hurts. It really hurts. And I know why you say that, and you're right. So I say, yes, Jack. She was crying a little, but she held my gaze. And I'm so sorry that I was a selfish idiot. And for hurting you so much. She burst into tears again. And this time I went over and hugged her, still angry, but loving her warmth and gentleness. She hugged me tightly, crying, and finally said, "You haven't told me your decision yet, but I'm still in favor of the third one. With all your conditions." Good. It's my voice too. Number 3. Carrie was fast asleep next to me, snoring softly. I was still awake. I was brooding, but I felt good. When the blood test results come back, and not a day earlier. Until then, you'll just have to suck me off. I felt surprisingly optimistic about my marriage. Perhaps in part it was just a certain degree of maturity at 41. My reaction to her cheating was stronger than just the blind rage I might have felt at 25. As I told you at the beginning of this story, I know that Carrie loves me. She's spoiled, but she loves me. So if we can do something about the part that's messed up, maybe we can do it. I didn't think I'd be dating Stephanie for very long. Love was wonderful, and I really liked it, but I couldn't understand how that could stop me from rebuilding my marriage with Carrie. Nevertheless, the very possibility seemed to me a good lever of pressure. And I really enjoyed licking the Kung Pao chicken off Stephanie's breasts.